Good morning, everybody. All right, good morning, everybody. As you just heard, my name is Kimbrell, and I'm up here because we as a society have a problem with how we handle drug addiction. Drug addiction affects millions of people every year, but I'm going to start off by talking about just one person. I have a friend here at VCU who, for the sake of anonymity, I'm just going to be addressing as John during this. John, just at first glance, looks like a normal VCU student like everybody else here. You've probably seen him somewhere around campus. He might be in one of your classes, and you've probably interacted with him at some point. What's not so normal about John is that he had to fight his way through a crippling heroin addiction in high school. The following is a direct quote on how he describes his withdrawals. "It was weeks of hell. All day, every day, it felt like getting electroshock therapy right to the guts. Everything I ate would come back up. I would sweat through all my clothes, and I'd hallucinate through anything that I'm wearing. Even now, knowing how hard it gets to break off, I still have a constant itch to go back sometimes." That's the kind of life he had to put up with for 2 years. But John is actually one of the lucky ones because John got caught. His little brother turned him into his parents, and his parents sent him off to a rehabilitation clinic where he got the help that he needed. The problem with this process is that if John was just 1 year older, he was 17 at the time. If he was 18 years old, rather than getting the help that he needed, he would have gotten a felony and jail time for possession of illegal drugs and use of them. This imbalance of priorities is shameful in our society, and as such, we have an ethic duty to push for the United States to adopt Portugal's new drug policy. So, for background on what's happening in Portugal, in 2000, Portugal passed a new law concerning drugs that took effect in July of 2001. Essentially, what this did was decriminalize the possession of all illegal drugs. And it's important to note that this is not the same as legalization, because the manufacturing and dealing of drugs was still illegal and had the same exact penalties. When people were found with small amounts of drugs, and this is defined there as less than 10 days of personal use, they would be sent to the Commission for the Dissuasion of Drug Addiction, an organization dedicated to education about the dangers of drugs and then their negative effects on you and society as a whole. And rather than having a blanket punishment for anyone found with these drugs, they would do it on a case-by-case basis, deciding whether the person needs additional classes on education, whether it's just a small slip-up, whether they need a fine, stuff like that. And by implementing this policy, the Portuguese government has shown that they've grasped the concept that seems foreign here still in the United States, and that's that despite doing these illegal drugs, despite breaking the law and all of that, the addicts that are facing this problem are still people who need help. When did we as a nation allow our priorities to become so unbalanced that we view punishing people who are already suffering as more important than getting them the help they need to get their life back on track and become a contributing member of society again? So as with any new proposal for the government, there are going to be those who disagree with it, say it can't be done for any number of reasons, and one of the biggest is always going to be money. We don't have the money to implement this. We can't afford it. And to put it quite bluntly, that's not true. That's an incorrect statement. Every year, the United States government spends over $40 billion in our war on drugs. This does not take into account any local spending, any state government spending, and then societal impact from drugs, such as loss of wages and how much it costs to run the prison system. Is it truly that unreasonable to think that in an ineffective war, there has not been a significant decrease in drug usage across America, that we can't take some of the funding from this, and instead of fighting to punish dealers and such, we could use that money to help those who are affected and those who are suffering to get themselves back on track? Another big argument is that the decriminalization of these drugs would turn the United States into a sort of drug mecca. The decriminalization would promote drug usage. But that's also incorrect, and the facts in Portugal speak for themselves. Over the course of a decade, the most recent study was done in 2009 on the effects of their new law. Drug usage across Portugal has not increased in a significant amount. On the other hand, the amount of drug-related deaths due to overdoses has been cut in half. The number of new HIV cases each year due to dirty needles being reused was cut down by 75%, and their overflowing prison systems due to constant drug charges the load on them was lessened. They no longer have this overflow. And again, with results like that, you cannot, it's not feasible to argue against this for that reason. This cycle of pain and suffering caused by addiction has gone on for far too long. We need to be the generation that ends this today. Thank you for your time.